That was actually a video that Colelas made to his supporters before he succumbed to COVID-19. May his soul rest in peace. Now back home and in the studio, and this morning we are focusing on the role of firstborns. Now this is a conversation you actually suggested that we have now that we are trying to debunk our childhood and of course the parenting styles and what that has or whatever impact that has on who we are today. Now to help us understand this better, in studio with me I have Purity McKenna, who is a counseling psychologist. I'm also joined by Benjamin Jather, who is a firstborn. He'll tell us his story in a moment. Maryam Vigodi, who is also a firstborn. And Diana Ochola, who is a lastborn who was bequeathed the firstborn rights in a blended family. Her story coming up in a moment. But at this point, I think it's important for us to reiterate why it's important to go back there and figure out what those roles meant or mean to us today. Purity, tell us more.
Thank you so much, Gladys, for having me. This is an interesting subject because each one of us come from a family. And in those families, every person plays a particular role. And today, our focus being the firstborns, and I actually like what you said, that you could write a book.
Oh, yeah.
And I think every firstborn would do that. I was talking to my elder brother, who is the firstborn, last night, and we were just laughing. And I'm telling him, you know, you can also write a book. So when you said that, I was actually laughing because I was thinking, okay, could be. The story is like my brother's. One thing why we should go back to that is because essentially our childhood shapes us, our present and future life in a big way. And the roles that we play, the things that we go through when we are growing up, they play a major role in what we become in the future and what we are today, even as adults. And so it is very important for all of us to go back the memory lane and ask ourselves, how was it like to be a firstborn? How was it like to carry out the roles? I like the person you mentioned, and you said they took up the firstborn's roles. For whatever reason, I can identify with them to some extent. And I'm saying, going back to look at that and asking ourselves a few questions would help us answer them actually and be able to understand why we do things the way we do them. Those of us who are now parents, we would ask ourselves, why do I parent the way I do? Maybe it's because of what I went through as I was growing up as a young child. Maybe I treat my firstborn in this manner because I was a firstborn treated in that manner, or the contrary. Maybe there is a way you were treated and you don't want to treat your child the same way. Sometimes it may be a right thing or a wrong thing. Although, again, I know with parenting, we keep trying and erring all the time, yeah? So it's just about understanding. Does my childhood experiences as a firstborn, even now as an adult who is a firstborn, do they affect who I am? Do they affect my social life? Do they affect my physical life? Do they affect me in any way? If they do, therefore, what can we do about it? I think that is what we need to look into.
All right. And I love the fact that she's actually put that in a very neat bow, because that's what we are ensuring that we achieve as the objective of this conversation. And to start us off, let's talk to the gentleman amongst us, and that is Benjamin. Benjamin, you are a firstborn in the family of boys. As they used to tell us, if you could write an essay, what would you say was your experience growing up?
Okay, thank you for having me, Gladys. I think my experience was very, very interesting growing up.
Go ahead.
My experience was very interesting growing up because I'm a firstborn in a family of 4 boys, so I have 3 siblings following me, and we had an interesting upbringing because there's no big gap between us. But the responsibility was on me, the onus was on me to stand up and kind of be a parent, because our parents were kind of very busy as business people, and I had to fill in their shoes in a way, and just to be there with my brother. So a lot of responsibility was put on me, and the pressure was there, and I think that had an effect on me, because I grew up to be, that person who takes leadership, takes responsibility, would want to see what is going on around me. I would question things. I would be a bit more protective than probably the average guy. But I think it was a very interesting thing to observe, especially now that, I was coming to speak about this, looking back and seeing some of my brothers and the traits they took, some of the things they took after me. And, probably I should mention that growing up, at some point I got into drug and alcohol abuse, yeah?
Oh.
So I was an addict for a number of years before I came out of that. And it was interesting to see that even two of my younger brothers also took up those tendencies. They took up the tendencies that I exhibited at the home. When I listened to rap music, all of them gravitated towards rap. When I listened to reggae, all of them, kind of gravitated towards reggae. And even coming out of that stink of drunkenness and drug abuse, they also followed suit. It's like I am the mirror, I'm the emblem, I'm the one who is giving them an identity and a blueprint to follow after.
Oh, wow. And we'll delve further into your journey in a moment. Let me hear from Maryam. Maryam, what is your experience growing up as a firstborn?
Thank you for having me here. I'm a firstborn in a family of 2 girls. I have a younger sister. I have basically been a deputy parent since I was a child. That's what they called me in my family, a deputy parent. I have taken up a lot of responsibilities, especially when my parents divorced. I had to step into the mother role and guide my sister. When she's in school, I was the one going for visiting, going to pay fees. And I was also the one taking blame for all mistakes of hers.
Yes.
When we were younger. So yeah, if she does anything, who has that? No, it's not me, it's Maryam. So I have to take it on her behalf. But this has made me quite a strict person, because I grew up in a strict home. My dad was very strict. And I'm always trying not to make mistakes so that my sister does not make the same mistakes. I'm a mother of 2, and I have seen the effects of my upbringing in my kids, especially my firstborn. I'm really tough, I can say. I am trying to slow down so that she doesn't turn out exactly like me. But it is a journey.
Okay, and we'll listen to that journey in a moment. Let's bring in Diana Ochola, who is actually still on the road as she heads to work. Diana, you are the last born that was bequeathed that role of a firstborn. How come?
Okay, first, good morning. For me, it's very different because I am actually a last born. From my mom and my dad's side. So for me, it was more like my mom had 5 kids. I'm the last born. My dad had me with my mom. I'm still a last born from that family. But I lost my mom when I was very young. And by then I was about 7 years. So my uncle took me in. He didn't have a child. He didn't have a wife. Actually, it was very... I feel for her today, because she was told, like, do you want a husband? I have a child and it's to take care of her. So if you want to settle down, this is it. You can take me in, and that is it. So they had 2 other kids, and boom, I'm a firstborn again. So here you are, things are changing for you. You have to be a big sister. You have to take care of the younger ones. You learn to manage a home, cook, clean, train the kids in terms of schoolwork and all that.
Oh,
so that's
wow.
how, for me, last born to a firstborn.
Okay, so do you feel that the role you were bequeathed actually has an impact on who you are today?
Yes. When you're a firstborn, things change. No one is telling you most of the things. You learn as you go. You have to mature up very fast. You take responsibility. You start behaving like being a girl. You become like a mother, you know, taking care of the babies, changing the diapers, washing the clothes, taking care of a home, cooking. By the time I was 9 years, I could cook, I could clean, I could run the business. When my aunt wasn't away, when my aunt was away, you'll find like I'll step in. And you start raising the other siblings just the way you want yourself to be. So it meant like you have to be number one. So you coaching them, schoolwork, they have to be number one. They have to perform. They have to behave in a certain manner. And I realized as you grow, it changes everything about you. You become very responsible. You take responsibility in terms of financial decisions. You learn saving at an early age. There are quite a lot of things that really change you. So you find like within that period, I even noticed that I didn't play. I never played in my life because I was busy taking care of the baby, you know? So everything came up really fast. Yeah.
Okay, now interesting. I think we'll do this a little bit later to just see now how those two roles actually, you know, are different from each other. From a last born to a firstborn, that was a huge change in your lifestyle. And McKenna, just listening to each of these firstborns, first of all, I actually can attest to what they're saying because I've gone through the same as a firstborn. And what I'm hearing is I started parenting at a young age. I was the compass for my siblings. And some of us did not even have a chance to be children. Talk about that.
I love it to hear what Diana was actually sharing, because many children actually get confused in terms of who they are, in terms of the roles they ought to play, because ideally it's clear naturally that a firstborn is supposed to do things this way. And amazingly, firstborns become like the second parents. So if you're a firstborn, you become a parent that takes the responsibility when the very parent is not present. And so, like the gentleman who spoke said, they learn responsibility early enough. Why? You are the only person that is around to be sent, to be given this duty to carry for your parent. If your parent needs something from the shop, they have no one to send. If they need something fixed in the kitchen, they have no one else to do it. When they are leaving for work, who is told to do A, B, C, D? The only child who is in the house at that moment who becomes the firstborn. Of course, the firstborn in the midst of others again becomes the responsible one, because like everyone has said, at the end of the day, they want to be the ones showing direction. You've said that clearly. You become the compass, ideally, to give direction to the others. And then also, because of that sense of responsibility, you don't want to mess around, because everyone keeps on telling you, hey, look here, everyone is looking at you. Your siblings are looking at you. So if you mess around, at the end of the day, they will follow suit. So you are seriously under pressure constantly to make sure that you are showing the way, to make sure that you are responsible, to make sure that you do what you are expected to do. So the expectation on the child, the firstborn child, is extremely high. And that's why they become a bit more responsible compared to other children, because they are the ones showing the way. They are the ones actually who have been there longer, ideally. So they know their way out, so they have to show everybody else how to go about it. And at the end of the day, they end up very overwhelmed, extremely overwhelmed. If parents are not careful on how they treat their firstborns, then like the lady who spoke first, she said, now it is affecting the way she is parenting her children. And this is simply because I think there was no controls. There was no limit as to how much can they do and what kind of guidance or supervision can they do this. So when parents do not look into that, and especially the parents we have today who are very busy, career mothers, career fathers, they are in school, they are in business, traveling around the world, doing everything. And as a result, there is no time to guide the child. There is no time to even listen to that child. Unfortunately, this child is left with a house help who probably was also a firstborn. So it becomes a roller coaster of things that this child cannot really entangle. They are mixed up. And so it's very, very important as parents today, as we listen and watch this program, to ask ourselves, where do we stand as parents? Are we standing on our bringing as firstborns? Or are we raising our children the way we would want them to grow? Because our parenting is mostly informed by how we were parented.
True.
So if my children are going through the hardships that I went through, then I'm not parenting my children. It is my parent in me who is parenting my children. And one time, I have children, Gladys. One time, I don't remember, there's something I did, and then my last born was like, Mom, are you sure that is not your mother?
Oh.
That took me aback. And honestly, I looked at it and I noticed that was not me. That was my mom parenting my child. And so we need to always stand at a pedestal where we are looking down and asking, who is parenting right now? Me or my past?
That is a very good place to actually hear from these children that have grown up as firstborns. And McKenna is talking about the pressures of growing up as a firstborn. And Benjamin, you mentioned that there was that pressure to do things right, to lead the way. I mean, with 3 other brothers, I mean, the pressure must have been really high up there. Tell me, how or what led to you getting into alcohol and substance abuse?
I think it was peer pressure and peer influence, and because of being the person who takes responsibility, I always relegated importance to other people. Like, I saw other people as more valuable, much more important than I am. Like, their opinion would matter. Like, the world revolves around them. Like, taking attention away from me. So when I got into school and meeting people and kind of, also seeking affirmation back, because all my life I had learned to kind of put the attention away from me and just let people, have the platform, have the limelight. So I go to a place where I think it's a psychological thing that I needed attention back on myself. And unfortunately, the only place that I could find was not in a proper place. It was not among people who would be good role models for me. So I got into, a gang in the neighborhood, and what they would do is that they would abuse drugs, but I was now that younger brother, you see. I was kind of transitioning from having to take all the responsibility into having now people focus on me, and now they would involve me in whatever they were doing, and before I knew it, I was into alcohol and drug abuse.
Let me ask, do you think to a large extent that was you subconsciously rebelling against this pressure to always be perfect?
Yes, it was. I even remembering the kind of posters I would have in my room at that point. I remember there was one that my mom pulled down very angrily. I had written, respect me, because I also liked calligraphy. So I did a very nice calligraphy of respect me and put it on the door of my bedroom, just to communicate that I don't want my space invaded anymore. People can also, just give me time to be myself and to live life myself. So yeah, it was kind of a rebellious mechanism.
Interesting perspective. Let me hear from Maryam. You said, and you still say, this is part of who you are. You are very strict. This is perhaps a reflection of how things were also put across to you and how you should carry yourself?
Exactly. My dad had no negotiations. You will not discuss. He laid down the rules, you have to follow. You cannot argue, you cannot dispute, you cannot negotiate. Whatever he says, it has to be done, whether you like it or you don't like it. That is how I was brought up. Unfortunately, that has turned me into a very tough person. I am really struggling with raising my daughter, who's 5. I try so much to listen to what she's trying to tell me. As much as I want to enforce rules, I am trying. It's work in progress. I am trying to listen to what she wants, what she feels. If she's okay with what I want, we at least have discussions, because she's now old enough. She can express herself. If, Mommy, I don't like this, I'm like, okay, if you don't like this, don't do this. If you don't do this, then this will not happen. It becomes a bit easier. But on my background, I did not get that. All I got was strictness, caning. You have to abide by the curfew. We had curfews in our house. You had to be home by 6. If you're not there at 6, find where to go.
I actually can say I attest to that. That was my life. So I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you talk about the discipline, because there are some people who said being a firstborn when it comes to discipline can actually be added on the list of 1,000 ways to die, because the near-death experiences when it came to the discipline. Talk about that.
I remember one time, I was younger, in primary school. My dad found me on the roadside with a school friend who was a boy. And boys were not allowed to talk to us. Whether it's your schoolmate, your friendship ends at the school gate. If you're found outside talking to that boy, you better pray that you don't die. It was, but even boys in our estate were not talking to either me. Just a simple hi would warrant a lot of fights. So it was, I wish it was a bit different, because I don't have a brother, so I don't even have an experience of having a male companion, a friend or a brother inside our household. So I was not even allowed to have male friends until I moved out of my father's house. That was when I got married.
Oh, wow.
It was really tough.
Okay, interesting. And Benjamin, I can see you laughing when I'm talking about the near-death experiences. Did you go through this?
Yeah, we had so many of those. I remember 2 very interesting scenarios that made me rethink whether these are really my parents. One of them is that we had a radio, and kind of I figured how to record, to use the tape to record my voice. So we did that like the whole day. We would take my mom's tapes and my dad's tapes and just record ourselves over and over and over. And so we forgot, being children, we were carried away. We forgot the tapes in the device. And when my parents came back home, they listened to what we were doing. And the beating that we had that day, plus being subjected to a cold shower, it was very interesting. And the other scenario was at some point I would keep some of the change when I was sent to the shop. I would keep some of the change, and then I would buy sweets and later sell them at school. I had that entrepreneurial bug bite me early. So one day, I think my mom was cleaning our room, because we shared a room with my younger brother. So when she was cleaning, she went to, I don't know, it was just by mistake, by happenstance, she went to where I had kept all the sweets, and they just fell and splashed on the floor, and there were so many. And she called us and she was like, where are these coming from? So this is where my money has been going. And we got a fine beating, we got a thorough beating. So we had a lot of those, you know, near-death experience. But when I look back, it wasn't abuse, it wasn't as bad, because they would later affirm us, they would, you know, take us out shopping and just tell us, you know, we are doing this so that you could be disciplined, and we are doing this because we love you.
Okay, was it harder on you as a firstborn because you should have known better?
Come again?
Was it harder on you as a firstborn because you should have known better?
Yeah, because there was that innuendo of, you know, what are you showing your brothers? You know, what are you showing your brothers? So it was more harsh on me.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now, I understand we have Danson from Transmara on the line. Danson, what's your question or comment? I think we have lost him, but I'd like to hear now from the last born who was bequeathed the role of firstborn. For you, Diana, tell us a little bit about how life was being a last born.
Wow. I can't say much about it, because I will say that I really enjoyed more of being a last born.
Okay, but, just change around your phone to landscape so that we can see you. There we go. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, for me, it was, okay, because I had other siblings, a bit of it, they'll check on you. But now, being that you're also, you've grown as a firstborn, they know you can handle everything, you know? So theirs is just to check on you. Hi, well, that's it. Because they know you've got everything in order. So I wouldn't say that I really enjoyed being a lastborn. More of it, it's 95% being a firstborn.
Okay, so now your role as a firstborn, you've had Benjamin and Maryam talk about the pressure that came with this role. How do you identify with your own upbringing?
Wow. It has taught me to be a mentor, to show people the right path. It has taught me to understand the other siblings, where they're coming from, you know. So you have this motherly love, you have this caring bit that now it's like you're the understanding one, you know. And I've noticed that maybe my juniors will always find me the easier person to approach. So it's like you can fit in, you know.
All right. And while growing up, why your parents hard on you now when you became a firstborn and had to be the perfect one?
It is more of you have to maintain it. Maintain being the good one. You can't behave, you cannot fail, you cannot make mistakes. There's no room for mistakes because all eyes are on you. And everyone is like, be like her. You cannot do anything less. And I've seen the ones that have mentored, my cousins, the younger ones, they're like, if Diana didn't do it, I can't do it. They're like, don't tell her. She cannot afford to know that I did this. You get? So I had to change that mindset of people are different. You can never be me, because I've seen sometimes that when they're being punished, they'll be like, you know, Diana is Diana, I'm me. So don't force me to be Diana, you know. So yeah, that came up. So I would put them in a situation where they need to distinguish the good and the bad. Why do I do this? Why didn't I do this? What are the importance of doing the right thing? If Diana wasn't failing in school, is not making mistakes, why do you think she turned out to be like this? Is she headed on the right track, you know? But I also try to make them understand that there is, I'm not perfect, but I can only try to be good. And if you feel it is good enough, you should follow suit.
Let me ask you, Diana, isn't the thought that everyone thinks you're perfect pressure in itself because you can never let your guard down?
What I learned because my mom died when I was very young, I had to fight for myself. I had to protect myself. I didn't need anyone to come and like take care of me, you know? So I was always there with my guard like this. Yes, and I've been told that loosen up a bit, but this is me. This is me.
I hear you loud and clear. And McKenna, you can listen to them, all of them, and you can even hear the impact of their upbringing. We have Benjamin talking about subconsciously rebelling. I mean, he just wanted, go somewhere else, just leave me alone to be a child. McKenna, the strictness is still haunting her today because she's trying to undo it with her child. And of course, McKenna is saying, yeah, my guard is always up. This is how I was brought up because I needed to take care of myself and those that came after me. So how now do you adjust? You know, because there's a lot of unlearning and relearning.
Yeah, exactly. Let me first talk about that rebelling bit because it's very, very important for us to understand. The reason a person will rebel is because at the end of the day, they need to be themselves. They need to be the child that they are. But back at home, they are not children. They are these young or child adults, you know, that they have to be because of the responsibilities that are looking at them. And then everybody, of course, expecting too much from them. And as a result, now what happens is this person, when they have the slightest opportunity to be themselves, they overdo. The slightest chance to be the child, the slightest child to be where you don't have somebody watching and expecting too much on you, you want to maximize. And so they find themselves getting into some behaviors that probably they wouldn't want to get into, like exposure to drugs and substances and other behaviors, even stealing. And others, they do this because their parents are not there for them. Parents are not there for firstborns. Attention shifted when a secondborn came in. It shifted again when a thirdborn and even a fourthborn came in. So where is the firstborn left? And probably they only have a gap of 1.5 years or 2 years. So where is that firstborn child? So what happens is, because all attention has been shifted, they can now do anything. They want to get attention for themselves. And I think that's what Benjamin said, that he was looking for attention towards himself. So he turned all the eyes to him so that now he can be himself. So what happens, and I think every parent needs to get this, is that the moment we shift our attention from this child to others, then we need to ask, whom have we left this one for? Who is taking care of their emotions? Who is taking care of their needs? Because they are still children. Remember I said maybe the difference is just 2 years. So they are still children ideally. So we need to just remember they are children. And they need our attention as parents. Of course, I know it is tricky. It is tricky, like we say it in Kenya. But the thing is, as tricky as it is your responsibility as a parent to look into all your children, to focus on all of them. It may not be equal attention, of course, that I know for sure. It may not be equal attention. However, I think it is possible to just make the child know that you're there. It is okay to make the child know, yes, as you're doing this, we are in it together. We are doing it together. I'm not leaving it totally to you. So if we can be able to do that as parents, then we will be saving the firstborn generation.
All right. And we'll talk about the near-death experiences that most of us have stories about. I hear we have Dalton from Transmara. What is Dalton from Transmara? What is your question or comment?
I'm also appreciating the connected as into NTV.
Yes.
Sijawahi ingia hii kitu.
Aya basi, tuambie.
Nilikuwa nasema kwamba kweli watu wanafurahia kweli kuwa firstborn.
Aya, tafadhali punguza sauti ya TV yako.
Okay.
Aya, endelea.
Ninaona kwamba watu wengine wanafurahia kuwa firstborn. Lakini mimi naona kama wengine wetu tunakuwa misleaded so much by parents. Unaona, unapewa kitu tuseme kipaumbele mpaka unaweza pata kuwa unakuwa mislead. Sasa mimi nilikuwa naonelea sana sana watoto wale wenye firstborn mostly wanatumia hiyo opportunity tena wanaharibika. Wanaharibika sana.
Okay,
sasa mimi nilikuwa naomba kama nimeshukuru sana kwa sababu ya program ambayo mnaendeleza. Unajaribu kuelimisha jamii.
Aya, sasa wewe ni kifungua mimba ama?
Mimi ni thirdborn. Lakini ninaona vile firstborn wenzangu wale wenye wamenitangulia wote wameharibika kabisa.
Oi.
Sasa unaona wanatumia ile opportunity. Wanatumia ile opportunity vibaya. Yes.
Sawa sawa, asante Dalton kwa kupiga simu na siku njema. And I think he's just reiterating what you mentioned, that there is such a high chance of the firstborns rebelling against the pressure that was put on them. Now, the other thing that came up is the fact that the discipline was too much. That discipline, my God.
You know, Gladys, this is the first child of this particular mother-father. And so what they're doing is they want to raise their child in a superb way. When they are disciplining and that serious beating, it's not like they really hate on their children. They are doing this because they want their child to be the best. They want this child to come out, you know, this super brilliant, hardworking, responsible child. They are not beating to death. They are saving the child.
Well, it felt like we were about to die, but hey.
Yes, that is the mind of the parent. But remember also, some parents, their parenting styles are playing a major role in their kind of discipline. So, depending on that parent's parenting style, they are likely to beat the... I remember one time somebody was beaten and everybody in the community cried.
Okay.
Yes, literally. A neighbor went to help, but I'm telling you, the neighbor was beaten as well. A parent beating a child. But ideally, this parent is shaping the behavior of their child without knowing the effect that can have on this particular child. But remembering again, Gladys, this parent was actually raised that way. The only way to correct, to make sure the child is responsible, was a cane, and not just a cane, a serious one. So they're actually just doing what they know, what they were told. Thank God today we have such programs where we can learn, where we can learn to unlearn and relearn. Because ideally, like the parents who raised us, who taught them, they only did what they saw their parents doing. So it's really sad that parents beat their children to almost near death. There are parents who have hurt their children physically. Like you find a child with the plaster. The parent beat them. A broken limb because the parent beat them. I remember a parent I was told of who literally chopped the son's ear. Discipline, different levels of discipline. But what happens is when now this continues for a very long time, this child is likely to carry the same to their own families. Yeah. And they are also likely to rebel. And that is where now this, like the caller who just made a call, yes, said that the firstborn, wote wameharibika. That's how he put it. Wote wameharibika. But it's a rebellious kind of move to show them, you've beaten me enough, I can also do something. In fact, the child is also inflicting pain on the parent, subconsciously or unconsciously, inflicting the same pain that was inflicted in them. But the parent thinks, I don't know who bewitched my children. You actually bewitched them yourself. And it's important for us to really get that clearly. Disciplining a child does not mean necessarily beating. But I would say you spare the rod, again, you spoil the child. However, as you discipline your child, let there be limits. And let the child also understand why they are being disciplined. It's not just picking them up and pulling their ears and pushing and, you know, kicking and everything. Yeah. Some parents are actually venting their frustrations on this little guy.
Yeah.
They are frustrated from wherever they are coming from. And because this child is the responsible one who should have done this, fixed that, made that, and they didn't, forgetting their children at the end of the day, then the frustration of their bosses, their business, the business deal that didn't work is pushed, projected on the child.
May we be better parents now that we have more information. Remember, our question of the day to you is, are you a firstborn? Kindly share your experiences growing up, because this is what we would like to understand and also see what we can undo even as we parent our own children. Crispine Willis says, may all firstborns be blessed. May their bank accounts be blessed. May they never lack. Amen. They tell stories to the younger kids. Some sacrifice for the rest of the kids. Others offer protection, guidance, leadership, and more importantly, role models. Although others might not show all this, but I know it might be situational. An applause for our big brothers and sisters. Aki Jameni, please appreciate us. Thank you. Eliud Kipto says, yes, I am one of them. It is so amazing to be a firstborn kid. Eliud, thank you for sharing. Adrian, in today's society, firstborn has nothing to do with the order of birth. It is who has the most money. We'll talk more about that because, yeah, those firstborns have changed around because of how wealthy they are. Emily Gisemba says, yes, I'm the firstborn. It got even tougher when my mother died, and I had to raise my 4-year-old brother and be there for my dad. Emily, thank you for sharing. Felix Mogoa says, being the firstborn, I am the parent of my parents and now my siblings. Felix, I hear you. Ruth Murgor says, yes, I'm a firstborn, and in the year 2019, it was so difficult for my family, and it's there that I prayed for a job, and luckily I got one and learned the meaning of true responsibility. Thank you for sharing. Timothy Kilatia says, I'm the last but stressed up like the first. Horrible. Timothy, I think you're hearing Diana on this one. Gladys Kanini says, it's hectic and awesome as well. You always have to act as #Mom Junior to your siblings, so there's no place of you making any mistake. I grew up knowing that being the firstborn, if I go astray, then my siblings would follow my footsteps. So I always had that mentality of not making mistakes. But thankfully, my siblings grew up to being our family's honor, and I thank God for not making it that difficult in raising my siblings. Gladys, thank you for sharing. Mwarewa Jerry says, I'm a firstborn and I have never enjoyed the journey. Deputy parent automatically. Too much is expected of you, from setting a good example to monetary aid to everything. We hear you, Jerry. Liz David says, yes, I am. It's beautiful and horrible at the same time. It's one of those sweet and sour relationships or roles. Tracy Buhadia says, yes, I am, but the pain goes to my bank account balances. Tracy, ooh, say that louder. Stacy Ayuba says, Mimi ni last born, but my experience ni kama ya first born. Stacy, I think there are a lot of those that are can actually identify with Diana. Remember that hashtag is new normal, even as you give us your experiences as a firstborn, and as we continue to hear from those who have walked in these shoes all their lives and the impact it has had on them, good or bad. Remember, the objective is to learn from what happened when we're growing up so that we can be better parents to the children we're bringing up today. We'll be right back. It is your world. My name is Gladys Gachanja. Today we are focusing on the role of firstborns, and oh my, the stories that are coming through that hashtag new normal, even as you give your own experiences, and those that we are hearing from Benjamin, Maryam, and of course the Diana, even as they talk about how they see this impacting who they are today. And of course, we have Purity McKenna, who is a counseling psychologist, helping us debunk the impact of the same. Now, let me cross over to these firstborns. Diana, I'll start off with you. You are a very well-adjusted lastborn who became a firstborn, and there is the pressure to also live life a certain way. Okay, so in this case, we just had somebody say, at times, it's not really about which role you play, it's about how wealthy you are. So is there also a pressure for you to actually act a certain way, live to certain standards for you to have a voice? Diana?
Yes. Luckily, I'm young, so I'm still allowed to grow in the financial, in a career way. So I'm given time to do that. But so far, so good. I appreciate my upbringing in a way that, unlike other people, I would have goals every year, you know? Mm-hmm. So the difference would be that I would write down every beginning of the year what I want. So I'll have my goals in terms of career, in terms of savings, investments, personal plan, and all that, you know. Mm-hmm. So that has really got me. But there's that expectation from the family in terms of, you know, you need to have this good job, you need to drive this BMW. Like for me, they always say that BMW X7, X6, you know, this place you need to live, like you deserve to live in Karen, in Runda, you know, there are those good things they wish for you. And it always puts you on your toes in a way that you'll have to put everything in order, like make sure that you achieve and, work within what they expect of you.
Okay, Diana, do you feel at times you wish that they would just take what it is you can actually offer for now?
Sorry?
Do you at times wish there wasn't so much pressure and they could just take what you can offer for now, as long as you're actually putting everything into it?
Do not look in terms of expectation for me, but I look in terms of what do I want for myself. You get, what can I achieve? You get, because at the end of the day, don't build castles, then you're not able to achieve, then they won't trust you. So what do you think you can achieve? Does it make sense? Is it what you want? Because at the end of the day, as a human being, you need to be a little bit selfish. Think about yourself. You know, what do you want? What do you want to achieve? Is it something you can work with? I can't say that I want an X. Yes, I would love an X7 now, but can I afford it? No. Okay. So, so there are those things that you need to consider. So as much as there's so much pressure, just check what is good for you. And that comes about in terms of your upbringing. Like my mom taught me to pray. She died when I was 7. I would pray, and it guided me on the do's and don'ts. So every step is a milestone for you. You appreciate and you keep praying for better. That's it.
Okay, interesting perspective. Let's take a call from Maureen from Embakasi. What's your question or comment?
Good morning, Gladys. Thank you for your show. I was listening to McKenna and I could kindly relate and...
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying morning, Gladys. I was listening to McKenna and I'm kindly relating. I'm a firstborn in a family of girls. Mm-hmm. And the kind of parenting style that I went through actually shaped me to the person I am today. They were very strict. My parents were very strict. And I was also listening to one of the presenters there saying that they had curfew. We also had curfew. We used to think it was a mean thing, but the curfew thing really worked for us. So we could practically run home, falling on our knees, crawling, getting into the house to beat the curfew. So I could relate. Mm-hmm. And also there was I had to say that if she was seen talking to a boy, it would lead to practical beating, like 1,000 ways to die.
Yes.
I also went through that, and I didn't die. Yeah, so I think being a firstborn also, everybody looks upon you, everybody is watching, your siblings are watching, and they get to learn a lot from you. And for me, I can't complain much. I think it was the best thing ever. If my parents were not as strict, I don't think I would be the person I am today.
Interesting perspective, Maureen. Thank you for calling. And John from Meru, what's your question or comment?
Morning, Gladys.
Good morning.
I just want to share that I happen to have been a firstborn, hungry. And as a boy, all that I was taught about is discipline, and discipline. Nothing else. And I can remember that one day, my father, who was a senior chief, senior prison chief, in the early years from 1961 to 1980, in 1967, we were little boys and we let cows loose at one time, and he could not punish me. So he gave me a note to take to the deputy headmaster.
Yes.
And when I took the note, he told me strictly, go present it to him and wait for the result. And I went to the office, I gave out my letter, and as I was about to leave, I told him, I cannot leave because I was told to take the result back. Then he told me, go to class, I'll call you. I told him, no, you tell me before I leave. And when the deputy opened the letter, he just closed the door and gave me my best 5 canes. They were all written there that I want him to have 5 canes.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
That one really taught me a lot of things as I grew up. To know that you don't expect to be disciplined by your parent alone, even the community was there. And so these days, parenting is that you find a child is let loose to the parent alone. And if you even try to advise or to put some words of wisdom to that particular child, you get a rushback from the parents.
Okay.
So that is why we are losing it as a society.
All right.
For firstborns, it is also stated in the Bible, especially in Colossians 1 and allowed verse 15 there downwards, you read and see that if Jesus himself was a firstborn to save a family or the world, so parents really expect the firstborns be role models and to be people of stature who can guide and take over the family reign. If The parents wish, if the parents are not there or is it passed on.
Thank you, John from Meru. Thank you. Okay, at that point, I think I will cut off John because we need to save on some time, but we hear you loud and clear. And of course, the expectation goes beyond just here, but also is tabulated in the good book. And I'd like to hear from Benjamin. We were talking about, and it's come up again, that the pressure to look and sound a certain way carries over even into your adulthood, and you are expected to be a success. So much so, if you do not live up to it and one of your siblings does, that sibling will take over your role. Do you feel this pressure?
Yeah, the pressure is always there. And I think because you have to take responsibility, again, if you delegate responsibility, you also delegate your authority to be the person who's actually taking that role of a firstborn. And a lot of people look at it differently. Some look at that responsibility to be exclusively on leadership. Others will tie finances into it and provision. So it depends on where you're coming from. But even maybe to go back to the good book, the Bible, we find people like Jacob and Esau, that Esau he missed the opportunity to get the blessing from his father because he didn't actually take the responsibility to cook him the meal that he wanted. So he passed on that opportunity to Jacob, who actually stood up and took the responsibility, although it was done in a cunning way. So there's a principle there. There's a principle there. And even our Lord Jesus Christ is a firstborn because he took that responsibility to die for humanity, and that's why he's the firstborn from the dead. He's kind of the person at the helm. So we find that in a lot of spaces where probably the firstborn didn't really stand up and take his role. He didn't really measure up, and probably the second or the thirdborn took that role seriously, and they stood up, they propped up themselves, and actually, you find families where they are not, they don't refer the home through the name of the firstborn, because I also see that the firstborn gives the family an identity. Like my parents would be called Baba Ben, Mama Ben, because I'm the firstborn. But you find in other families, because it's the secondborn who is kind of well put together, they eventually give the family an identity. So the pressure is still there, and I mentioned that I had this stint in drug and alcohol abuse, and that kind of makes you irresponsible. So you're not trusted with finances and responsibility. And at that point, I could see now in hindsight, I can see how my younger brother, stood up, and he would be given responsibilities. He would he was the first one to be taught even how to drive. Most of the time maybe he would be given the family car to go run errands, because if I was given the same responsibility, probably it would have led to more harm because of my indulgences. So the pressure is there. And now, having reformed, having come into this place where I got cleaned up, I got sober, I can see whenever we have the conversations, I can see the respect and the authority having been given back to me as the firstborn. And they would listen more. They would ask for my counsel. I would hear my dad say, "Oh, you guys, you need to listen to this guy because he's like the second parent," which was not the case when I was when I was a druggie, when I was a drunkard. So yeah, there is the pressure still to exemplify something and to stand up and take your role.
All right. Now, Maryam, just listening to all that, now that you're an adult, still, as Benjamin says, the pressure is real. Do you at times have a hard time saying no?
Absolutely, yes. I have a very hard time because my dad passed away, so I am also a parent to my mother. So I have a hard time saying no to anyone, either my mother, my sister, my cousins, my friends. It's so hard for me because they look at me in a certain way. They think I'm perfect, but I am not. they look up to me. They give me a lot of responsibilities. I think it's because automatically, because I'm a firstborn, I have to take that. But it's a lot of pressure, but I am thankful for my mother, who's the only surviving parent now. She does not pressure me. Anything that I give to her, she is contented with. She wants me to progress in my family life rather than just focusing on her only or on other people. She's quite supportive, as much as she was quite strict when I was younger. Right now we are best friends. But yeah, the pressure on being a firstborn, even the society, at large, gives you a lot of, they look at you in a certain type of way. You need to behave in a certain type of way. You need to have achieved certain type of things before other people. So it's a lot of pressure, but we are grateful that we at least are the heads.
I hear you. Now, McKenna, I think if there's a season, must be this pandemic, that firstborns actually feel the pressure, the fire under their feet. So the pressure has always been there, but now it has been exacerbated by the pandemic, because as most were saying even on the feedback, is that their bank accounts can always remind them the role they play in that family. Talk about how and why it is important to always remember that these firstborns, as much as you expect them to excel, be in charge, that they're still human beings.
Yeah. It's really sad, because sometimes when you look at the pressure on the firstborns, it's crazy. They probably are now adults with their own families, but still taking care of their other family, their parents' family. And often than not, you'll hear a parent calling the firstborn and telling them, hey, what are you doing about so-and-so? What are you doing about so-and-so who lost their job during this COVID? And maybe you are enjoying your 10% pay or 20% pay also because of the cuts and all that that has happened with COVID. I think it is high time, of course, agreeing with the panelists that clearly it's a joy being a firstborn, supporting others when you can. But it is also important to know you can't always. It is not all the time, Gladys, as a firstborn, you will have something to give somebody else. Because you too have a family, you too have your needs, you too have your school to pay, you too have your house rent to pay, you too have your salon to do, and everything else. So at times it is okay for that firstborn child to stand up and say, it's not like I'm not willing to help, but I'm not in a position to. My hands are tied. I have a few things to, you don't even need to explain what they are. Because ideally you are human, like you put it. You have your pressure as well. You have your needs as well. So there is need for every firstborn, everyone who is playing the firstborn role, to be assertive, to say no when it is a no, to say yes when it is a yes. When you know clearly you are not in a position to come through for someone, I mean, you are not in a position. Don't get into debts to come through for everybody, because you'll get depressed paying these debts, and they will be happy enjoying their lives. Am I being the devil's advocate? No. I'm simply saying, can we just know our limits? Let's know how far we can push. But of course, with a willing heart to support, with a willing heart to come through. And then also maybe we could speak to parents and tell them, it's also important not to replace the actual firstborn with the other child who has more money than the other. Because I've seen this happening quite a lot in the society today, where the money that you have is what probably could be the decision in the family. Yet ideally, your decisions are not the best in terms of ideologies, maybe that firstborn who has nothing, and probably they got nothing in the process of supporting everybody and running around taking care of everybody else. But you realize their responsibility as firstborns, their place as firstborn, the God-given responsibility and place of firstborn has been taken by that other one, who actually they had all the time to study, get good grades as you fetched water, as you got grass for the cows, as you did everything for everybody else. Parents, let's be kind to our children. Let's understand every child. God gives children to be first, second, or last. It is not our making as parents. So if God has given you a firstborn, support them to take up the role of the firstborn even when they are not financially able. I don't think being a firstborn is about how muscled you are financially. It's a God-given responsibility. And so it's important for us to look at it from that point of view. But above all, let's know our limits. If you know you are strained, say, I am strained. When I'm in a position, I will come through. And honestly, when you are, come through. That's how I look at it. Be able to say no. And then also, you don't carry the burden of everybody else, including those who are able to do stuff for themselves. Because remember, firstborns were trained to take up everything.
Oh, yeah.
So even now, when everybody is capable, you're still doing the same. Get to a place where you can be able to separate. You can be able to remove yourself, step out a bit, to be yourself, to have your life, have a life for your family as well, have a life for yourself, and then we can all say we are doing well.
Okay, interesting perspectives that you bring, because I can tell you as a firstborn, saying no is such a hard thing, but I have literally had to learn as I matured and got experienced, or else I was going to drown. Unless
you want to be distressed.
Very true.
Actually depressed, not distressed.
Very well said.
Yeah.
Remember, our hashtag is new normal, even as you share your experiences as firstborns. If we have any feedback, please put it up on the screen, even as we share and learn from each other. Evelyn Etemesi says, as a firstborn, it has been very difficult for me because no freedom at all. You always act as an adult, young mom, when the parents are not around, but it really helped me in training my firstborn too. Thank you, Evelyn, for sharing. Karanja's daughter says sometimes lastborns end up being like the firstborns. I think this is the case for Diana, and it's not easy, especially in families where siblings have actually, I think we took away that before I could finish, but then again, I think they were giving a scenario as to how lastborns can easily become firstborns. Yeah, there we go again, especially in families where siblings don't like taking up responsibilities and burdens. We hear you. Thank you, Karanja's daughter. Damir Kibet says, it's not easy being a firstborn. My father passed away when I was in first year at Maseno University in 2014. I had to struggle to finish campus. I managed to graduate in 2018, but with a fee balance. After graduation, I had to hustle to sustain my family. That is my mom and my two sisters. I can't get a job because I don't have my undergraduate degree certificate yet. Kibet, we hear you. Thank you for sharing. Awilo Kopija says, being a firstborn in a middle or lower class family is not a joke. Responsibilities kibao. Awilo, I hear you. Baraka VM says, yes, I'm always automatic deputy parent. I think we all have that t-shirt, cup, and all those goodies to show for it. Agumba says, it's never easy being a firstborn. I'm one in a big family and a humble background. You have to behave in a manner that must mold the siblings. You mess, the rest will mess. You fail life tests, you can't guide the others. Above all, it's your role as a role model. It's never easy. We hear you. Thank you. And the guru says, being a firstborn, you definitely become a deputy parent automatically. A lot of people speaking about being a deputy parent, yeah? And Mayana Wak, with firstborn and once assuming the position, life is not easy. You have to make sure you bring up your followers, which is your fellow siblings, and see the best in them. Thank you for sharing with us. And we have Caroline from Nairobi on the line. What's your question or your comment?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gladys, for this wonderful question.
You're welcome.
My question is, when you find in a family the second-born or third-born taking up being more responsible than the first-born, how can parents help the first-born not to be responsible people? Because in other families, you find that...
Sorry, Caroline, we seem to have gotten an interference with your connection, but we got your question. Kagumba from Kisumu, what's your question or comment?
Oh, yes, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Agumba Kagumba from Kisumu. I love this topic of discussion despite being late.
Yes.
I just need to hear from you, the panel, and more so the female part. There is this notion by the public that when you are a woman and you get married to the firstborn, then these men tend to lie so much to the families. I mean, the dad, the mom, and the siblings, and then they neglect the family, that is the wife and the kids. And then another advice I would like to give, I know there are some other firstborns watching, and there are those who are also with you in the panel. It's always very important to play the role of being a model. Remember, as I said in my speech earlier, that the moment you mess, the rest of the siblings are going to mess.
Okay.
You're like a mirror, you are like a mentor, you are above all the acting parent.
All right. Kagumba, are you a firstborn?
Yes, I am.
Okay, speaking like one. Thank you. All right, thank you for calling in. And I think before we give McKenna a chance to answer these questions, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, more of your questions to the panelists, including McKenna, even as we continue to share our experiences as firstborns. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja, having such a great, interesting conversation on the role of firstborns, and a lot of you have really opened up on their experiences as such. That hashtag is new normal on our social media handles, and of course you can reach us using those numbers at the bottom of your screen, even as we continue to seek counsel from Purity McKenna, who is a counseling psychologist, and of course the firstborns in the studio, Benjamin, Maryam, and of course who's joining us virtually, we have Diana, who is or was the last born who was bequeathed the role of a firstborn. Now, interesting perspectives that came to the fore before we took a break. McKenna, Caroline from Nairobi said, how should parents prop their children? As you were saying, you want the firstborn to stay with that role and actually live up to it. But then again, you have families, one, that have a firstborn who is not living up to the task. So another child has to step up. Or you have a firstborn who has a totally different personality from the secondborn or thirdborn. So the secondborn and thirdborn are the ones who actually shine. How do you balance this out?
It's a different. It's an interesting dynamic, so to speak, because every person has their own personality, and I really appreciate that question because. Let's say we have a child, a firstborn, so to speak, who is a very social person, an extrovert. This person is likely to overshadow everybody else. And they may look like they don't matter, they know nothing. He becomes domineering because of his trait, personality trait, not because he is a firstborn. So bringing in being a firstborn into a personality, actually bringing a personality into being a firstborn.
Yes.
Yes, bringing in a personality into a firstborn makes the dynamic even more intriguing. But again, there could be a firstborn whose personality is laid low, laid down, and they are not proactive. They are always laid back, not running much, not struggling to make things happen because of their personality. Not because they are firstborns, but because of their personality. Then that means the duties and the responsibilities of a firstborn may not be taken up by that firstborn because they are not quick to fix things. Yet firstborns learn to fix stuff very fast. Right now, if you learned as a firstborn that your parent is unwell, God forbid, before anything else, you have found a way of getting them to the doctor. But there are others, by the time they make that decision, not because they don't have the capacity, but their personality won't allow them to be as quick in making those decisions. They first want to analyze, they want to dig deep into everything and see. So by the time that decision is made, 3 hours down the line, so you realize if a lastborn or a secondborn had a personality that is fast in making decisions, then they will take up that role and get things done. So that becomes a dynamic, that's what I said, in the sense that parents also need to understand. Siblings also need to understand their fellow siblings, because if they don't understand, then there is bound to be some rivalry. Like so-and-so is taking up the role of my role as a firstborn. So-and-so, because they have that, they are able to, you know, again, even much as we talked about finances, there is some influence that money gives someone automatically. And then also exposure is another factor that we need to look into. I may be a thirdborn, but a little bit more exposed than the firstborn and the secondborn in our family. So what will happen is, because of my exposure, I'll find myself picking up stuff very fast and doing and fixing them. So it is important for us as siblings, as parents, to understand everyone's personality so that also we don't fight over who we are. But again, also understanding our own personalities is very important, because of course, there are things we can change in our personalities, especially those that are not working well for the family, your family of origin, or even your present family, your own family. There are personality traits that won't be supportive to the family. And so an individual needs to know what their personality is like and whether it is supportive or not. Imagine a firstborn who is not proactive. Then it means, obviously, if there is another child in that family,
they'll step up.
They will step up. So the firstborn will keep saying, huyu anapendwa kuliko. But ideally, it's not about them being so loved. It's about them being quick in doing things and ensuring that everything is in place and being supportive as well.
So is this the point where parents have to be cognizant to the same and keep affirming each child for their strengths and weaknesses?
Yes, and I wanted to say something on top of that. Yes, a parent needs to be aware. Be cognizant of who your child is. Every one of them, know them. But above all, the best way to ensure that firstborns are not overwhelmed is by ensuring that each child has a role. And as a parent, you follow through so that when I was growing up, I am the secondborn. My brother, who is the firstborn, would avoid carrying out their duties. And because, again, I don't want him to be beaten, I'll make sure I do everything that I'm supposed to do and also what he was supposed to do, so that he is not, you know, that near-death
experience. Yes.
I'm saving him from that. And also he took advantage. He took advantage of that, and some siblings do that. But now as a parent, you take responsibility. You take your supervisory role. Let the firstborn know you have A, B, C, D to do. The secondborn knows you have A, B, C, D to do. The thirdborn knows. And later in the day, follow up. Get to know, are you doing what you were supposed to do? In the evening, again, sit with them. Who did what they were supposed to do? Applaud them. Who did not do? Find your way of dealing with them, but let every child have a role and responsibility.
Very well said. Let's talk about roles, and in this case, focus on the gender roles. I'll start off with you, Diana. Are you married?
No, I'm not.
But you've been dating, right?
Yes.
So which role do you play when you're in a relationship? The one of the lastborn or the one of a firstborn?
Wow. I try to be a good girlfriend. So
that is a very diplomatic answer.
I try to be a good girlfriend. So it is more of wow. Your character will always come out, who you are, you know. So it is more of you will say things how you want it, how you feel it. So it's kind of domineering, you know, but sometimes you have to step back and understand that you are two people here. So I feel like I'm more straightforward, which sometimes can brush people. And because you know what you want. After all, you can do things by yourself, you know? Yeah, so it comes out strongly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Let's hear from Maryam. Are you married to a fellow firstborn?
No, I am married, but to a lastborn, actually.
Oh, okay. So how does that balance out?
He says I'm tough. And I believe that is because I am just a firstborn. And I was brought up to be tough. Not like a girl, but more like a boy. Because we didn't have a brother, so my dad was raising girls like boys.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, and is that normally a source of conflict, especially now that when you're playing those gender roles in a relationship where he's supposed to be the man of the house, but here you are digging in?
Sometimes, yes, it does contribute to conflict because I'm very opinionated and I feel like I am supposed to be in control of everything, just like I have been since I was a small girl. It is sometimes a source of conflict, yes.
Okay, interesting. Benjamin, married to a lastborn or firstborn as you?
I'm married to a lastborn.
Interesting. Is it that because opposites attract, the firstborns marry lastborns?
Yeah. It could be. It could be because maybe they are looking for that, you know, leadership and somebody who would guide them. Yeah.
I see. So how is it with you guys?
It's an interesting space because I think I have learned to there's something, because we also do, together with my wife, we do something, we have a forum for marriage and relationships. So what we teach and what we embody is mutual submission and point leadership. That is, as a husband, I have to provide that leadership, which for me is a space and an ecosystem where she'll be able to make the best decisions for our family going forward. But I also realize that there are things that are for her as a woman to do. So I wouldn't interfere. I wouldn't come too far into those. But I'll just, you know, give the general vision for the family, tell her, baby, you know what, this is where we are going as a family. And whatever you're doing, let it add into this vision that we need to achieve. So I've learned to, you know, bring her into the decision-making process and just allow her to be herself, but it's something that I have had to learn, because, you know, the firstborn thing was just playing in, and I wanted things to be done in a particular way, you know, to be, you know, kind of so assertive.
Yes.
But I have learned to tone that down.
Okay, the director is telling me we have a question. Is this on the hashtag New Normal? Okay, let's have the question up. Cindy says sometimes big sisters or brothers' strictness destroys family relationships. If a mother or a father or both are too strict and big sister or brother as well, whom will the siblings talk to or run to? Let me throw this to Maryam. How is that with your sister?
Apparently, my relationship with my sister is, we are too close, we are inseparable. Because I know where to draw the line. Sometimes she's so upset when I tell her, I don't want you to do this, I don't want you to do that. But I give a listening ear, and that is what I'm trying to practice with my daughter. I don't impose things using force. My father didn't give me that opportunity to discuss. I have that with my sister, so she is free to talk to me at any time about anything, over anything. I will not judge her compared to the things she can tell me she wouldn't definitely tell my dad, because my dad will not even listen. And it is something that I've had to learn, so that I make sure we are close. We are only two. So if I decide to be as harsh as my parents to my sister, that will completely destroy that relationship. And that is the same thing that I'm applying to my daughter. I listen to her so that she's a very calm, bubbly girl. She reports herself when she makes a mistake. She does not wait for you to find out. Because I've given her the room to, you can tell me anything, it doesn't matter how bad it is. I am still your parent. Yes, I will be upset, but at the end of the day, you are my child, and that is what matters.
Interesting. Now, McKenna, I love the fact that each of these people on our panel have actually come to the realization, the role they play in relationships, because we can't run away from that. And it goes without saying that the firstborns will take charge. So how do you ensure that you keep your relationships in check as you keep yourself in check because of how you were socialized?
You know, Gladys, I was listening to the panelists, and they said they're married to lastborns.
Yes.
And I was telling myself, oh my God, if we do not learn to manage relationships, especially where gender is concerned. Remember, you had mentioned something about gender. Imagining now a lady who is the firstborn married to a man who is the lastborn, that is likely to bring a lot of issues in that marriage. Why? Because lastborns are not decision makers. All decisions are made by everybody else but them.
At least most often than not.
Most often than not, yes. So you will realize that the lastborn is always seeking attention. They want to be lovey-dovey and all that. And now here we are, it is the man who is the lastborn in this marriage or in this relationship. So what is likely to happen, many times the man will be feeling offended when the lady who is the firstborn here is taking up stuff as the firstborn. So what that means is it is important for every person in this relationship to understand how their birth order affects their relationship. That is going to be very critical. And especially as a man, when you're getting married to a firstborn, please take time to understand who a firstborn is, some of the things they are likely to do. Find time to sit down and talk about them. As a firstborn lady who is getting married to a lastborn gentleman, please take time to understand them so that you don't have a push and push pull every time regarding the roles and responsibilities that you need to take up in that family. So gender is very, very critical because again, you will realize often a firstborn man will not actually be attracted to a firstborn lady. It doesn't happen often. Reason being, these are going to be fahali wawili within the same, you know, and they are likely to be fighting because everyone's stand has to be hard. Everyone knows what to do. Like Maryam has just said, no, Diana said, I know what needs to be done, and after all, I'm able to do it. So if everyone comes in with that, then there's going to be a wrangle. So it's important to understand. Just know that I am getting married to a firstborn or to a secondborn or a thirdborn, and this is what actually it means. Then you can be able to work from a point of understanding.
Okay, now interesting. Are you done with that?
I wanted to request that you take me back to the question.
To the question. It was actually about the fact that sibling rivalry can also be orchestrated when the firstborns are too strict with their younger siblings.
Yeah. And again, remember the parents are also strict.
Yes.
So if the parent is strict, the firstborn is strict, the person was asking, so where do the younger siblings run to? It's important to really learn that everyone needs some support, be it a first or a second, a third or fourthborn or the lastborn. It is important to know that they all need support. I love what Maryam was saying, that now she has learned to listen.
Yes.
It is important that we all learn to listen. That lastborn, much as you want to be strict, they need somebody to listen to them. They need somebody to allow them to be children at the end of the day. They don't need to be, you know, everything has to go according to the letter. If not, then consequences follow. They need to be allowed to be children. Sometimes I even look at my kids doing a mistake and I allow them, because how else will they learn? Let them make it, let's correct, so long as it's not something grave, you know. It's not something grave. Let them make that mistake. Allow them to be that child for that moment. Allow that firstborn to be the firstborn, but learning responsibility. So much as you're becoming strict on them, be strict, but leaving room to allow this child to be a child.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I'll throw this question to Benjamin. Kagumba Alia called and asked that we talk about wives who are married to firstborns. Now, your wife is not here to speak for herself, but then again, you said you've been very intentional in, you know, arresting yourself when you go overboard. But do you struggle trying to meet the needs of your family vis-a-vis your own?
Do I struggle to meet the needs of my family?
Vis-a-vis your own, like your extended family, like you're a firstborn, you take care of everybody else, and then at home you leave yourself lacking in one way or another.
Oh, I thank God that all of us are proper in their place. My brothers have their jobs. My dad is okay. So there's no such responsibility for me, but where I can see it is in offering leadership, you know, because my siblings would be, you know, all over me, you know, what do we do here? Which direction do we take? And, you know, my dad is kind of, you know, also directing them, telling them, you know, just go to this guy, listen to what he says, and you'll be fine.
Okay, now you said when you were growing up, you remember the poster, respect me, so that people stay out of your space.
Yeah.
At times, do you feel like, I hear you, I'm your firstborn, but please, achane na mimi kidogo tu?
Presently, I kind of enjoy it because of the space I am in as well.
Yes.
I'm not only dealing with my immediate family, I'm also a spiritual leader, so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of people coming and seeking counsel. So it's not so much overbearing. I've come to learn to let people into my space and acknowledge that that's how God has gifted me, and that's what I have to offer.
All right. Yeah. Now we're bringing this conversation to a close, and I'd like to hear, starting off from Diana. Clearly, I'm sure there are a lot of truths that have come out of this conversation going forward and the different roles you play in life. What's your take home? Diana?
It feels good to be a firstborn. Gives you that sense of It gives you the sense of responsibility. It makes you be organized, and it feels good to be important, to be needed, to be wanted, to be looked upon to. So it's a good role, and I appreciate it because I know I'm going to be a better mother, a good wife, and a good person in the society.
Okay, yes. And a challenge to fellow firstborns.
Yes. It's amazing. It is amazing. It is challenging in terms of sometimes you have to go the extra mile, and then you also tend to give so much because you end up being a little bit selfless. You know, the little money you have, you want to send your sister pocket money, you want to buy them clothes, you're spending so much on themselves that you even forget yourself. But at the end of the day, it makes you a good person. It makes you useful and important, and you show people to be loving and caring. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Maryam?
I am actually very grateful and thankful to my parents for bringing me up the way they did. I have turned out to be who I am because of them. No matter how good or bad it was, but I am who I am because of what I went through. And it has made me make better decisions in raising my children. It is making me a better mother, a better wife, a better daughter, a better sister, and a better friend, and a better woman in the society. I would love to challenge fellow firstborns to take time for themselves. I do that all the time when I feel I'm overwhelmed. I just, either I switch off my phone or I go on holiday and just take time to relax and put everyone away, and it's just myself. Also, challenge yourselves as firstborns to listen to the younger ones. They have so much. They are probably afraid of talking to their parents, so you're the best person. Instead of them going to look for attention in the wrong places, have that listening, give them that shoulder to lean on and a ear to listen so that they do not go astray.
Okay, and for you, Benjamin, there are firstborns who have gone through such tough times and they have resulted to being very passive. They prefer if their siblings took care of themselves. If they needed something, they go somewhere else because it's too much for them. Your words of advice?
What I would say is that firstborn, being a firstborn, that position comes with responsibility and a role. But more to it is that there is a blessing, no matter your worldview, whether you're Christian, Muslim, or any other worldview out there, there is a blessing. There is an empowerment that, you know, your deity would furnish into that. And once you embrace that position, that resource connects immediately. So for me, my advice would be don't put away your responsibility, because that's where your authority is, that's where your significance is. So just embrace who you are and live a life that you should.
All right, before we hear from McKenna, if we can have that feedback on that hashtag New Normal, even as you continue to share with us your experiences as firstborns. Masinde Wafula says, being a firstborn made me mature so fast, as I had to adjust quickly. The unfortunate part of this is that one may not grow to realize his or her dreams. Immediately, you start earning, all the responsibilities are left to you, and thus sometimes you forget that you have a life to lead. And that's why McKenna was saying be very intentional about carving out your own space. Evelyn Etemes is back saying, being a last born in a family of 11 siblings, my eldest brother played a big role in shaping up my life. He could teach me, help me with my schoolwork. He could as well discipline me whenever I could go wrong. I salute you, my eldest brother, and all the firstborns. Some of them even forfeited their education so that they can do some vibarua to raise their younger siblings, more so if their parents passed on. We love you and we respect you, our firstborns. Thank you, Evelyn, for that. Faith Kerubo says, in as much as firstborns have such expectations on their shoulders, it is important that to note that they are also children who have needs and also need to be taken care of and shown the way. Being responsible but not void of parental care, as is the case most times. And I think McKenna really underscored this point. Nyaega says firstborns should be given some allowance. We stomach a lot. Nyaega, we hear you. Kevin Boyer here with the last one says, for real, being a firstborn, especially from a poor African family, is not a joke. You will never have time for yourself. You can't even spend money on yourself without thinking about your parents and your siblings. It is hard. Kevin, we hear you, and that's why we've been given the tools to ensure that even as we take care of everybody else, we also take care of ourselves. McKenna, even as we bring this conversation to a close briefly, what should the parents keep in mind?
Parents should keep in mind that they are raising children, especially now, parents that have young children right now. These are children. They can only do so much. They need guidance. They need supervision. They need love. They need to be shown the way. Very important. And for the parents who have adults, it's important to also know that they have their lives. Don't push and expect so much from them. Don't expect them to be paying fees for their lastborns when they are struggling with their children. Where they can, it is okay. But let it not be like it's a must do for them. Just talk to them, understand, know where they are coming from, what they are able to do, and then let them do it.
All right. Purity McKenna, who is a counseling psychologist, Benjamin Jatha, who is a firstborn in a family of boys, Maryam Vigodi, a firstborn in a family of girls, and Diana Ochola, who is a lastborn amongst us, who was bequeathed the role of firstborn. Thank you guys for being so candid about your lives and, of course, what being a firstborn means to you. And McKenna, thank you for walking with us, even as we debriefed and debunked what this role means to us. Now, tomorrow, we focus on harnessing your finances and investments. Are you part of a chama? Do you have a financial strategy? Did you know you can run your chama on a digital platform? Well, Victor Kiprop will be joined by experts to help shed light on this and much more. And we will also make time to appraise the status of tuberculosis in Kenya as the world marks the International TB Day tomorrow. See you at 7.